Good afternoon. After last week's, with my focus on the development of the pedagogy of conscience, this week I'll be devoting about maybe 1 to 5 hours programs back to the industry of the colored gemstones, diamonds, jewelry, and, and minerals. And I will be repeating the sequence of the past, but what is moving forward as I have been developing all this terminology, including the gem economics with a double M. I could have mistyped it to one M, but the constellation, the cluster of my Gemmfile system, as it was developed gently starting 1991. It have accumulated each one of this particular cultural spheres that you will see from the thumbnail. That I'm very happy that now this can take place into the major sphere of this world called Gemmeconomics. And with all the facilities that we have now, and let me just walk you through in this next 5 hours the program how anyone can start it, be that collecting of gemstones. Here in the US, we have many gem and mineral shows that people starting collecting, working on fossils in the regions like Montana, Dakota, and other people were trying to cut and polishing their own stones, the lapidaries. Some of this, as a hobby is becoming a little bit more, less and less of this kind of participants. What is in particular in my life when we started in 1977 with the business, and let me put it this way: by 1976, I have developed one of the major educational counseling psychology system called 3Cs. And then why did I jump ship in 1977? Just put it very simply, very bluntly. It is the desire of every single people in the business is to be goddamn independent. Nobody has to breathe behind your neck. I would care less if my former faculty at university shacking up with the secretaries or making out with the graduate students. What infuriated me in the old system, and many of you are independent businessmen must feel very much the same way. The hell with this high pay, high ranking. Many idiots in this world are degreed, but never educated, including politicians. And I will put this particular story linking to another outer ego that I have formulated with the Freudians' 3 ego states. Super ego is culture. Ego is me, I in Latin or in Greek. And the ID is the biological, physiological self, food, hunger, drive, sexual drive, and where his psychology got perverted by his own blood nephew, who was glorified as the American king of marketing and propaganda by the name of Edward Bernays. Sigmund Freud was desperate for money when the war happens. He moved to England. And then his nephew took his pleasure principle and took his psychoanalysis and managed to have perverted a rising American industry. No different than major commodities in life. As a Chinese, I put it this way: we have suffered the name for over 100 years, with the extension another 70 years economics depression until Deng Xiaoping. We were known to the world as the yellow bastards of Asia, be they put in by the English or by the Japanese. I was born in Shanghai, and my family home was behind the Peace Hotel, used to be owned by the Sassoons, the Iraqi Jews who moved to Bangladesh, English colony, and grow the cheapest opium, the best opium, surpassing the opium was imported by the Americans with names like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, with names like Astor, with the names like Forbes. And to look back a little bit more, much of a chagrin, your entire educational system in the so-called Ivy Leagues in the East Coast were predominantly funded by the opium trade. Another reminder, when we talk about economics, China and India, until India get colonized by the British in the 1600s, 1700s, the Chinese were by the 1800s. 1840 marks the first Opium War. India and China were the two largest economy, dominated 2/3 of the world. Today, the big data now we can backtrack on the past currency, past payments, past blood money, inequality treaty to Japan, to the cessation of Hong Kong, to the 100-year leasing of Kowloon. Every single treaty. Imagine with the big data, you're looking back, because you're looking back, the data no longer need to be one-faceted or from just one Chinese perspective or the American or the English or the French or the Japanese. Okay? With all the global conflicts, when I have found out the Americans, entrepreneurs, ethnic Jews, have funded the Japanese invasion into China, or even before that, Japan had took over the province of Shandong. The most embarrassing moment for China, Qingdao, when we were infuriated by the victory of the First World War by the Versailles Treaty, when that decision, even China as a victor nation, the Europeans have decided to give the German-controlled province, city, Qingdao and Shandong, instead returning to China, they gave that to Japan, also part of the First World War ally. So think in perspective. I want to put this Gemmeconomics into a perspective that every one of us today, what is coming technology-wise is a participation that can take on by anyone. And the new infrastructure, we're at this crossroad from all the past data, past equipments, into now the new AI. All that is going to be changed. And we are at this very first phase of the global infrastructure of an industry well known for its obscurity, subsequently by the many abuse, because there's no verification process. And just imagine, in what we have developed, one segment on the communication called Kava, calendar with K. Yes, we can dating back 200 years, and 200 years and beyond, we can go case by case. KA is the calendar. WA stands by the watermark. You date, you stamp with your watermark, and then for the time being, we can link with any blockchain company. In this case, we're talking about SingBrush from Boston. We are not into communication yet, but that can be a Kasewa, Kasewa, and this blockchain will grant us in whatsoever communication that you deem valid. You can copy to 100 to 1,000 to 5,000, or people such as I have developed on the Apple platform called GGMBA, Global Gem and Minerals Business Alliance. In other words, if Roberto Pego from Terfiotoni sent me a package of stones by email, I want the email to be transferred by way of Casiva or Casiva.com or CavaPlus.com. That will be in the future. This already a blockchain system where 600, 100, 1,000 of people in the club will authenticate, will verify that communication has been transacted between Roberto Pego, my friends, in Teofilo Toni, to Paul Yi. It's that simple. Or to my company. In this particular time and moment, what is AI can do for us? It is simpler. It's very simple to use. Do not let artificial intelligence to frighten you, because the data is enormous, and eventually we'll have our own data in deposit in our own clouds in the system. The gem trade in the estimated market today is about 600, 500 billion. That is not including the industry of jewelry, much less of the antiquity, right? In the older day, talk about the Sotheby and talk about Christie, or the other auction houses. Also have not been included of the gems and minerals field. Look at the growth demand on the intelligent cities that being started, initiated by the Middle East, be that Saudi, be that the Indonesia, be that Egypt, are building new intelligent city by way of the Huawei system or any other. The best stones in the family of granite is quartzite. There's no other country has the best quality of granites and quartzites along with marbles. Now, these are into decorative construction materials. But you put all this together, we are still estimating the entire industry is about 800 billion. So if somebody like Jeff Bezos from Amazon want to approach you, me, or anyone presenting, it doesn't really matter. Even if I sell out this idea to any one of the global conglomerates, I can still be profiting just holding on one of the many deposits. Me and my company and my associates be holding in Brazil, not to mention other minerals that will come into play, like the lithiums in Argentina, in the deposits where they have yet a donkey trail going into all the lithium deposits, or in Atacama in Bolivia, or in Chile itself. And the logistics side of it, per my last 6-7 years research above and beyond my knowledge of the gemstones and minerals, it just imagine the global logistics where the Chinese are building rail systems to go through Central Asia, to go from Tajikistan to Uzbekistan now to eventually Iran, and Russia and China is still having these issues about all the infrastructure building with the supply of the gas coming from Russia going through Outer Mongolia. One time it used to belong to China, but now it's an independent state. But the worst part of it is not the most friendly state. The system of the rail, other than the Russian of their own, the international rail one time by the British, now we metric. The size or of the distance between the two rails, unlike all the rail in the southern South America, I just mentioned, the potential rail system that can connect the entire region, and using the 7 open ports of Chile, adding to what is in Chennai in Peru. Because all the old rail systems in Latin America predominantly were built by the British. So for the Chinese to replicate, to put the rail system just to connect its 5 countries, I just talk about Brazil, Bolivia, even in the disputed region with Chile on the Atacama, the fattest part of the Andes mountain system. Now you have Paraguay, you have Uruguay, Argentina, okay? when the Argentinians were asking me to give them support to export their wine from Mendoza, which is northwest of Argentina. From Mendoza to the port of Buenos Aires is 1,800 kilometers. Look at the distance and time. If and when the railroad system can be built from Mendoza going west, straight west, there's 7 ports available in all territory of Chile. I was once in Riga, Latvia, 25 years ago, helping the communication gap. Believe it or not, is for me is absolutely absurd. The entire airport of Riga, Latvia was in my hands to be rent, leased, also whatsoever by 3 ethnic bankers who are Jewish but have no passport to leave Latvia. In the meantime, I could have the airport of Riga, Latvia. And think it again, the entire city of Riga, Latvia were all built in cement, just for the air defense and the former Soviet Union. When the Chinese were there, but they were looking to the system, they tried to build a rail system at that time south of the former Soviet Union, just to bypass the intervention of the Soviet Union, so the rail can go directly from China through the Central Asia or Iran, part of that, and because Riga has the deepest seaport. And their connection was to put all these cargoes into rail system onto Hamburg or into European cities. When they have discovered that I not only speak Chinese and English, I was recommended by ethnic Chinese from Sweden to connect and to give them assistance in Riga. When they discovered that I am fluent in Spanish and Portuguese, and I grew up in Brazil, and all my life business with Brazil, the interest that has started because they said the Chinese can partake the building of any seaport by the coast of Chile. And even if the disputed seaports between Chile and Bolivia, China can come into play to build a seaport and to give the sharing of the profit after operation with Chile, Bolivia, Brazil, and Argentina. You talk about foresight. This is 25 years ago. After we have shared, we have spoken, and I just put that pretty much that I'm available if they need my assistance. Because China, look at the west coast of Chile, can go 21 days nonstop without the interferences of the American military base in Singapore, located in Malacca Strait, and also by the west coast of Chile directly into China, going through the Pacific with zero interruption or any major American base in between the coast of Chile and all the way to the coast of China. Now, this is all part of logistics. So in this particular time and point, when I was doing my business, I pay respect. My father was a contemporary of Zhou Enlai, Deng Xiaoping, and part of their time spent in Paris. My father spoke fluent French, much more fluent than his Portuguese, but his Portuguese is almost flawless, all because the Romance language. So coming back to my point about Gemmeconomics, and part of the perspective that I have today is basically I can wipe all the past 45 years experience clean, because what coming into AI, to think this dramatically in images, I have my utmost, deepest respect for the Brazilians garimpeiros. Garimpeiros are the adventurers, be that their sense of knowing what is the major mineral deposit in the region, what is the side pockets, the auxiliary or alternative minerals. Well, we know that amethyst have gave me a lot. My good life early on is have manganese, and the color of the purple have come in from iron. So with all the iron ore and the manganese and all the other minerals, amethyst, when I first started amethyst, I was purchasing them between 50 cents a carat to $1 a carat. And I guarantee myself $3 selling price in New York. Even dear friend, Richard Greenwood, he doesn't like the $3 price. Ciao, adios, goodbye, boom, I'm gone. I'm back to my Chicago, heading to Los Angeles. And then eventually in 1982, I was one of the first 26 exhibitors into the Hong Kong show took place in Sheraton Hotel. And then there was just the beginning, the mass importation of the stones to Brazil, either by way of the US. In between the time, I have also explored, discovered why the Indians and how they sell the amethyst and citrines from the shaving, the cutoff from the major Brazilian industries where they bought by containers and containers. Remember, one container's net weight is about 18 tons. And we have helped part of that earlier to sell to India one containers for $3,000 to $5,000. So basically, there's no price of the goods. We got a preço de banana, give it away. Okay. All this I will be speaking, factoring in the new subject matters, the Gemmeconomics. But today, the Gemmeconomics is a revolution with the incoming of artificial intelligence. So what I would like to do for those who want to get a better response, welcome to send me the email. Okay, again, Paul at Paulyih, PAULYIH.AI. What I would like to do is to speak of some of the images or imagination is almost kind of comical. I mentioned my respect for the garimpeiros. Okay. The garimpeiros are the most venturesome, are the most, they're the bloodhounds. They can smell. They can look in the mountain. They look at the rocks, the estimated things. They can see a little cavern with the white stones. Oftentimes, those are the mica. And one time, mica was a very strategic mineral for the American Army Corps of Engineers, and that's how they went to Brazil in the region where we have found our stones in the two cities between Teofilo Otoni and Governador Valadares, which is located northeast of the state called Minas Gerais. Minas Gerais meaning general mines. God bless Minas. From this venture, I would like to make all my future garimpeiros, if they found a good sized pocket of stones, all they can do is take pictures, and they can go on venturing what color, what size, what quantity. That is secondary. If they can take a picture, they can put it up in the image. Let the buyers dissent using Zoom, using Google Meet, get an interpreter. We can provide all that for them to meet. I am using this particular case is just because I have experienced the great discovery after my amethyst in that last 30 years. One of the most explosive in the family of quartz are these goofy little stones with some transparency in white background predominantly Then you have the golden titanium inside. When they form together in a tight weave, you create a chatoency, which you call the cat's eye. When the rutilated quartz, these rutiles lining up vertically to create a chatoency, the cat's eye, we have the gold color. We have the green color. We have the color, we call it carneiro, or sheepskin color, which are kind of cordovan purplish red. With this crystal, we found other minerals deposited into the transparency were several, and then the whole thing just going up to the market enormously. But seldom have I seen these minerals gone up to $1 per carat once cut faceted. Okay, not many are faceted without the rutile touching the top. It's all depending on your eye for aesthetics. Some people buy stones for collection, other people buy because for jewelry. We have seen stones we sell to Paris, $6,000-$7,000. The stone's value for us maybe 45, 55, but it doesn't matter. In today's market, in today's AI development, I would like to see, imagining these garimpeiros. Tá me escutando, Fifi? É para você e a sua família, viu? If they found what they found in the pocket, and they can estimate what they got, and be careful, everything you found in the next day, in the next hour, within the area, there can be other stones to be found. Their price can make your price obsolete. So if they want to form the cartel, they want to form a good alliance to stabilize the price. Now, this is not to corner the market. If they can team up with GGMBA, just put a big name, rutilated quartz, or clear quartz with mineral deposits, with transparency and translucency that give light and give the fascination that entertains. I don't care if you are into medium, the stone that, I never forget. I love the actress Shirley MacLaine, but when she started with the amethyst as a medium, the geos, the big rocks, the matrix of the amethyst were exported to the US, and tons and tons and tons of these rocks, and taken away a little bit. Our gem industry, when we're using this big rocks, and the color's good, deep, we hammer them down. The first hammer is to break the rock. The second hammers and break them into loose pieces. I'm just using my terminology. The third hammer is to hammer the stone out of 100% cleanness, okay? And then that goes by the size. From 0.2 gram to 0.5, half a gram to 1 gram, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 4. This system were established in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, southern part of Brazil, and most likely were initiated by the German engagement into the region. It is one of the darkest, the best looking amethysts. But this is just Brazil. The extension beyond that, I think that some of the German may still fault me that opening up the term Siberia, the Siberian amethyst, which was valued one time in the 17th century or 18th century, that coming from Russia. But the best color stone of amethyst in the region, the southern part of Brazil, 7 hours southwest, is located in the town in Uruguay. Artigas, passing the city, called Uruguayana. In fact, I named one of my amethysts called Uruguay, Imperial Uruguayana. It's between Uruguay and in the region Uruguayana, of the southwest corner of the Rio Grande do Sul. I'm fascinated about stones. I love the gems, but from a psycholinguistic point of view, that have fulfilled another part of my curiosity, the industry. How does it evolve? How does it evolving from what they were? And how this industry in the Gemmeconomics, where one person finds a pocket of stones, can obsolete the other mining group. Okay, this part of economics. I give myself the best example with the stone from Fifi, Arauto. One of my first Brazilians garimpeiros I bought off the streets, and eventually Fifi had ventured into the region of Marabá up in the state of Pará by the Amazons. In the meantime, for the longest time, one of the most stable amethysts coming back from the Bahia region and Minas is a town called Brejinho. And I would eventually, I have it one time, but I have not the complete name. Brejinhos, Sinho. And those material coming up by the Germans is predominantly that market was controlled by the Germans. But in what I have done, and by some of the first investors of that mining had captured most of the stones and bring it back to Minas. And after they clean it, not hammering, we don't hammer up north, by sawing out the goods. And it was amazing that rough materials between $200, $300 a kilo. And by the extraction of the top color, I committed to the top color from this one group of cutters between 10,000 carats to 50,000 carats a month consistently, which is the same color of the Brazilians, all very compatible. Each one of us have our perception of the color. And then we also have to know what is our client base. Since I was a novato, basically I'm a newbie, I'm a neophyte into the gem trade. Started with $3,000 a carat, $3,000 capital, and then buying stones at 50 cents a dollar per carat. But I've always loved amethyst. And just by evaluation, where can you buy a stone $1 per carat in those days with the deepest color and its richest purple? Perhaps maybe growing up in the Roman Catholic Church and come to the Easter time, the purple, the color showing nobility or royalty, and so on and so forth. Well, but instead, amethysta in Greek meaning a stone that heals the drunks. I'm surprised amethyst have not sold more to the Irish. I'm sorry, I'm not accusing the Irish of drunkards, but this is just part of the linguistic when it comes to language and amethyst. So in what I have done in that short period of 5 years, I've made my first few millions with amethyst. But however, did I obsolete the mining in Brejinho? I think not. They have continued. They have continued their market supply that can go to 10, 15, $20 per carat. In my time, when I found my amethyst at $1 per carat, actually, I have another 80% of the stones off the dollar per carat grade, the top grade of I have, that eventually I distributed for less than $1 per carat selling to the local market. But in the meantime, that particular stone had gave me the market entry and give me the vigor to take this stone into Hong Kong before the German entered into the Asian market. The Germans were already there. The Germans, even the Lebanese, friend of ours, Cesar Habib, already had the cutting factory started in that region. But in 1980, the only the lapidary service in Hong Kong were predominantly cutting for the synthetic stones of the Chatham Emerald. I think Tom Chatham's still in the industry, and I have seen them in Tucson in that area. But there's no commercial groups were cutting what we call semi-precious. If we talk about racism, that goes through a very long period, the gemstone and racism. Even I was making money from my Hong Kong, quote unquote, I call them 土包子, but just local. When I'm selling $50,000 to $100,000 worth stone to the new company called Che Soy Lung, and I was insulted by a manager So with all the $50,000, $60,000 of merchandise, he shows me one ruby is worth all that I have. And at first I took it, well, is he trying to tell me that we are worthless? Or is this going to be a matter of showing, almost like borrowing a Freudian terms, who's got a bigger phallic? So I turn around to him and say that, let me tell you this, will be for the longest time, China, including Hong Kong, will be eating off our semi-precious stones from Brazil. And that was the last of my hostility toward my half Cantonese and their own arrogance. Two things I despise in this world is arrogance with ignorance. That's the AI that West got to be watch out. In the same manner, when I was to interview in 1982, Dan McKinney can correct me because he was involving of the development of the show, which eventually became the first Hong Kong show, semi-precious stone, with 26 exhibitors. The only other Brazilian was another American, Roth. Joe Roth, former Peace Corps, turned into the germ trade. We called him Joe Rochinho. We're the only two in English, fluent Chinese and English and American. With the 26 firms, we're the only two from Brazil. And I make a killing. What I took onto Brazil with 50,000 carat amethyst selling for $5, I can recuperate my entire $350,000 of the cost of goods I took to Hong Kong in that show. It was all done in less than 10 days. And I returned with the US with the money, directly went back to Brazil, bought in the second batch within 30 days. So those were the audacious days. I stayed straight down in Hong Kong, the Kowloon side on Nathan Road, at the corner of Nathan on the shore at the Sheraton Hotel. I had my tailor in the same building, the 1, 2, 3 suits. I never wear socks. My old habit from Brazil, maybe from our Sao Paulo lifestyle or whatever. So the first show in Hong Kong, and when I flew first 18 hours from Brazil to Johannesburg, waited 8 hours to connect from Johannesburg with 60 kilos of gemstones in 3 bags, with a shoulder American Army bag in my back shoulder and 2 bags on the side. I have to sit next to my goods, and there's no restaurants, there's no people in the airport other than the customs and security. Finally, I flipped a $20 bill. I just told them, get me whatever you can get, when the cleaning crew came in. And that's the meal I had. I forgot even what I have eaten for 8 hours waiting for the airport. And then the next flight from Johannesburg to Hong Kong was another 16 hours. I landed in Hong Kong 6 a.m. Already, this Americans, Hong Kong Chinese already picked me up. You're not going to the show right as yet. The Good Morning Hong Kong show had asked us to send in somebody to speak of the show. And I was the only one who can handle Spanish, Portuguese, English, Chinese, and Cantonese, as well as Mandarin. So I was invited. And I want to highlight this, some of the issues, some of the cases I've said, which mark some time in history. I remember the young lady, only in Cantonese. Her name was Yun Manxi, a very pretty lady, very sophisticated. And I landed without any other clothing carried with me. I had a khaki Banana Republic shirt, and I have a pair of blue jeans, absolutely worn down, dusty, and I have a pair of the so-called American, the Australian shit kickers, or the Brazilian call it the Portuguese boots, which have no heels. Not for riding, not for at that time. and I was unshaven, not that I have a lot of beard, landed to the station, ushered into the platform, and the subject matter went like this. A little background. Yes, I said my father's from Shanghai region. My mother's Cantonese, so I speak both. I can grasp Shanghai. I can speak Mandarin. I can speak Cantonese. And for the sake of the audience, we spoke namely in Cantonese. And then the question were started to raise, not their curiosity about Brazil. For them, it's like Amazon is only Tarzan and Jane was swinging from the trees along with the chimpanzees. So the next question, it was less than half an hour. The question she raised was, in what you do, Mr. Yi, how do you envision with this kind of product, which called semi-precious stone? Once again, that term is no longer used, but at that time, the semi-precious stones coming in from Brazil with this gem show, with the first exhibit into Hong Kong. What is your vision into the future? I just answered, China. She looked almost totally surprised, and she repeated her question again. Where do you think, with the prominence, economic stature of Europe, the French, the Italian, the fashion, now you have the Americans and Hong Kong. Did you say China? I said, absolutely. I said, there's no need for you and I to make any argument. We both at the age group that we can see what the future will be. Because I'm already envisioning since 1979, I would travel back and forth to China almost 3 times a year. I've sold agate to the Chinese. I trade my stones with some of the best Chinese carving in the most exquisite gemstones in fist size, finger size, aquamarine, tourmalines, bicolor, tricolor, where I have bought for $2,000, $3,000 or less, with the return of $10,000 to $15,000. So I did not mention the future of China is merely to process of the agates, the tourmalines, the aquamarines, the minerals that are coming in from all directions, started with Brazil. And so my question, I just answered very simply. I said, you and I both at the age group that will be witnessing the rise of the China, and also along with this area with artifacts, minerals, gemstones, so on and so forth. And after the interview, I had to rush back to the hotel. I get to shower, shave, and pick up my tailor clothing and head back down to 9 o'clock, 9:30 to do my show. As a matter of fact, I was late. There was another episode. Before I get to the show, some of the local reporters, I don't know how many of them, 3 or 4 of them, sticking the microphone to my face. Oh, you're the gentleman who just spoken on the television station. I said, yes, I did. He said, well, can you repeat again? What do you think that China can outgrow or become prominent? I said, I did not say that. Or I'm saying that China will be the center in the handling of future growth in the market, the jewelry, gemstones, because labor. And because I had to rush to my own exhibits, I told them the same thing. I said, you guys are very young. I mean, we can put a bet in whatsoever time, and you and I will be witnessing the rise of the China and the Chinese into the global economy. So life experience is always rich. In 1977, we opened our business. In 1979, many people knew, some did not know, we have already another business opened up in Palm Beach by the name of Le Gem, or gemstones in French, even Puerto Rican. it was a joint venture. I was invited by one of Chicago bakery magnate. The uh, he had his idea to have a store on the most prominent street in Palm Beach. Well, in less than 6 months, the store is open. We're in a place in Esplanade, 1 block away from Highway 101. Next to us is a Brazilian-owned restaurant called Café Europa. In this 1.5 to 2 years, we have come back to China. I was no more than 29 years old. We come to Hong Kong. We had bought with the China Arts and Craft in Hong Kong $350,000 of merchandise. And based on our agreement with principles and ethics that I cherish, I said, Bob, I do not want to be a partner with this operation. We have our business in Lake Geneva. But without telling him, I was already circulating around the US with the wholesale, with the quantity of the amethyst and the tourmalines I have, that I would not be able to put in 100% of my time as an operator, owner of the store on Palm Beach. At the many dining, into the breakers, and we were trying to fly into Las Brisas in Mexico every time we get into argument, and so on and so forth. But with that buying trip, where I have get acquainted not with the China Arts and Craft branch in Hong Kong, and because what we have purchased, with the additional purchase, I have gone on to China Arts and Craft branches in Beijing, in Tianjin, in Shanghai, in Guangzhou. Of course, to my best preference for all the wonderful artifacts in color stones, I purchased the most from Hong Kong, and the second round of the purchase were done all in Beijing. So there was only a second year from 77 to 79 to 1980. I refused to have the 1/3 ownership as promised, because I said, I will do all the purchase from you. You will find your team, and I only take a 5% commission of purchase. The gas estimate, the total purchase will be about $500,000 to $600,000. I think I've been very fair. I've never signed on the dotted line on the 1/3 ownership to be operated by his son, his wife, because I know the operation cannot be well executed. But nevertheless, I was one of the youngest guys, according to the China Arts and Craft branch, that wrote a check, $280,000 for the first portion. When I leave for my hotel, Robert Burney stayed at the Peninsula Hotel. I stayed with my wife, Kathy, and my mother-in-law in the Hyatt Hotel directly behind Robert and his wife, Dana. And he was a little bit skittish and said, wow, Paul, well, you know what? There's the elites, academic elites. In America, there are many, many plutocratic elites also. The name doesn't matter. By the way, I started my Brazil from the hinterlands of Minas Gerais without a lot of conflict, but I was comfortable enough. So I do not need the peninsula to stay. When we have his former tailor send us flowers or bouquets every day and a fruit basket that almost go rot in the hotel. But nevertheless, when I receive a commission check from China Arts and Craft branch, with 38, it was somewhere like $16,000+. I handed the check to Bob. This is my commission check. I asked you 5%. This is yours. What should we do? He said, spend it for the rest of the purchasing, which I did. Here I want to show in our business operation, when you're doing work, performing, buying or selling, your word must have value. And because what I have done with Robert Burney and our store Le Gem in Palm Beach, 1979, 1980, and because the way I have engaged with the China Arts and Craft branch in Hong Kong, in Beijing, in Shanghai, which had led the entire group referring me to then CITIC, the China International Trade Investment Corporation, and the head was Larry Young. And by what I'm making association with the Young's name, they have also one of the biggest family in Brazil in the wheat into the agriculture, and this Young family is next door to my home village in Yuya, which is nearby Ningbo, and they were known as the strongest capitalists in the communist system in the time of 1948. By this groups of association, they have asked of me to be a liaison and to develop gemstones and mineral business with not just Brazil, but with Latin America. Maybe perhaps what I have dispelled in 1973, I have visited Guatemala just out of pure curiosity. I was a travel sales agent for the China Airlines from Taiwan, who had never granted me any kind of a status because when I mentioned I have relatives in China at that time, but I was just totally curious about the only country, the only region in the Americas having a quality of jadeite like Burma, present-day Myanmar. So I took off. I spent 10 days up in Antigua, and I have met with the associates. So by my knowledge in 1979 about the Guatemalan jade had triggered a little bit of the interest of the people from CITIC. Also at that time in point, I have also with me the Banco de Boa Vista from Rio de Janeiro approached me asking me to be part of the consulting team, that they were willing to give China, be that China Arts and Craft branches, any of the branches, or CITIC, to give them a $3 million line of credit at a time when interests are very high, 18, 20, 25%. But with the dollar base, they will stick to a 3 to 5% interest rate, but to provide a line of credit to the Chinese. But the entire situation eventually erupted because of Tiananmen Square. So between 77 to 1981, 82, I have not registered my pioneer spirit, the semi-precious stone dealer and Chinese guy from Brazil and landed in Hong Kong, Kowloon, and fighting all this crazy comments. What can this semi-precious stone can do for us? Look at this big ruby. And I feel it's a way they're talking to me like I'm insulted. Where are you guys from? When I look at all the huge rose quartz size carvings, I look at all the big stone carvings, they're all from Brazil, predominantly. Because through 78, 79, 80, 81, I have going back and forth. I was purchasing after the buying for the Le Gem, our store in Palm Beach. I have established all this contacts, and by going back to the Canton Fair, I was offered some of the top beautiful artworks. You talk about aquamarine, the size of 3 to 4 kilos carved with the Kuan Yin, and all the bicolor tourmalines monkey, a family of monkeys. When I buy aquamarine pendants on that size for $2,000, which eventually sold in Palm Beach for $15,000. So I was gaining greater knowledge working with arts and craft branches. And the best time to do that was in the Canton Fair. It's enormous fair, but I got to look at all the arts and crafts, what kind of mineral they have. I was able to make an evaluation, what they would like, and then managing to ship agates and other non-faceting material stones to the entire core of China and Chinese in the Canton Fair. And one more point I will have to also give my audience, especially Ashley, talking about some of the economic maneuvers. What was very interesting, that I have a limited line of credit from the credit card. At that time, I believe it was $5,000. I could not have imagined in the Canton Fair, some of the things I looked terrific, wonderful, without thinking if I can expand my line of credit with the bank and whatnot. I have purchased more than $25,000 of goods. And that billing went from the Canton Fair, from the organization or the less structured organization of the Canton Fair. Those $25,000 of the credit card billing only came to me 6 to 9 months afterwards. So, in a way, did I abuse the line of credit? Yes, I did. But somehow the hunch of the delay, because how many credit card in paperwork they have the processing after the fair, from the local government, provincial government to the central, the state government, and then the central government. And actually, I abused that line of credit for more than 4 years and 4 seasons. So, in a nutshell, what I'm giving my audience here is my 45 years of experience, and some of the most interesting in the beginning of the first 3 to 5 years, because the conditions, I could hardly understand the language for Banco de Boa Vista when they're offering China 3% was such a benefit. In the meantime, I got 1% of what they purchased. It was very handsome because the bank then had their cut from the supply and the price offered by the miners, mostly in Rio Grande do Sul, between the two cities, Lajeado, Soledade. We talked, we have communicated. Even it did not really bear fruition. But with this contact with the Brazilian bank, with my engagement to the 5 plus 6 branches of the China Arts and Craft branches, who recognized me eventually, one of the few young men under 30 who wrote checks twice in $600,000 for the business in Florida. And by putting this into the perspective, I will continue on for the next 5 sessions, maybe one just after lunch. But I think this will add to the insights and foresights to the future people engage into the stone rock mineral business. As we are sharing, I've conducted business, even with Facebook, with stone coming up from Afghanistan, distributed in Peshawar, delivered to Bangkok, showing the picture, the entire lot of $30,000, $40,000 of tourmalines. They were 30% lower than the tourmalines from Brazil. And good sizes. Size I wanted for 20 carat, 30 carats. So they can be recut. And in less than 5 years, they went from Peshawar in Pakistan, ethnic Afghan, 3 brothers, to Bangkok, which I direct my partners in Bangkok to pay, and then eventually deliver to Hong Kong. And from Hong Kong, now they go directly across the border to Shenzhen. They're willing to take the Chinese currency in RMB, which my clients were in Beijing. So for their work, for their travel, for all this expenditure, I dropped my profit margin from 50%. Cost me one, I sell $1.50. And now I'm selling a 20% profit margin with a 5% reward to my associates in Hong Kong and Shenzhen. So the world is moving very rapidly, even before we got to this age, this date and age. And in the next segment, what I find very interesting, I will repeat again how we started with the Gemmfiles and how we can use this image from photograph and scanner to make this development into the globalization of the stone market. And this will be suitable from Brazil, from Africa, for my friends in Angola, my friends in Mozambique, and plus the work I've done for the Nigerian aquamarine minerals, how their prices at one time had come up and create a huge disturbance and displacements of the long-term aquamarine prices being held by the Germans in Ida Oberstein. And I shall see you in the next segment, hopefully in an hour. See you soon. Gustavo.